Coming up on The Sporting Chef.
Well, I'm gonna make a big pot of stew today, but first up, we've got Hank Shaw, who's gonna show you how to properly sear your duck. Alan Clemons tells you why ducks may not land anywhere near you. Chris Logan cooks a fish called cabrilla. Stacy Harris has a quick tip about dry rubs. Cee Dub makes a great wild turkey tortilla soup. Buddy has his way with some gizzards.
What do you get when you find the best fish and game chefs? Cookbook authors, award winners, fishmongers, outdoor experts, and put them on the fastest half hour on outdoor television. Hosted by one of America's best-known wild game chefs, Scott Leysath, The Sporting Chef. Brought to you by Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
You know, the settlers of our country always had a big pot of stew, pottage. As they would come in out of the woods with a critter or two, they'd throw it into the pot and it would just simmer and get nice and tender, and you really didn't know what particular protein you were eating. Well, I know what I've got. This is duck and goose breast. It's been brined in a mild saltwater brine. Into the pot, duck and goose breast. I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil on here and some High Mountain garlic pepper seasoning. All right, I've got a cast iron skillet here. A little bit more olive oil. And once that olive oil is hot, I'm gonna put this in, get it browning. Meanwhile, here's Hank Shaw right now. He's a James Beard Award winner. He knows ducks. He's got a great new cookbook. Check Hank out.
If you hunt ducks, this is one of the go-to skills that you're gonna need to know. Don't think about it as a bird, think about it as a steak wearing a hat made of bacon. That's why I leave the skin on and the fat on. The whole point is that crispy, crispy skin with just a little bit of fat underneath with medium rare to medium meat. You can use any fat. I like duck fat. You want to salt both sides. And salt it a little bit more than you think you might. And lay the duck breast in skin side down. Now, if you can see, they're going to curl up just a little bit. That's that skin contracting. Take your tongs and press it down just a little bit for about 30 seconds. What that does is it gets good contact of the skin with the pan. You want it to be like a happy sizzle, not a raging inferno, and you definitely want it to be sizzling. And you just let it sit. If you stick a hole in a duck breast or a steak for that matter, the juices are gonna leak out and you will be sad. It will not be nearly as nice. You use tongs and you just pick up the sides and check to see if it's ready. After about 2 or 3 minutes of sizzling, it'll be close. But you can pick it up and check it. Okay, these have sizzled for anywhere between 6 and 8 minutes. That's a general rule of thumb for wild ducks. Domestic ducks are going to take a little longer. Geese will take even longer. So you want it to be nice and golden. And this is what it should look like. That pretty, pretty brown. Just turn them over. And let them do their thing. But this time, you're only going to cook this side for maybe 2, maybe 3 minutes. Here, we're at a solid medium. Here's the last trick. Stand your duck up on end. Let them lean on each other, just like that. If you stand up the duck breasts against each other like this, you get that fat part, a nice sear, for just about a minute, it looks pretty. Take them off, and rest them skin side up. You've worked all that time to get nice and crispy skin. If you put them skin side down, they won't be crispy anymore. Let them rest, 5 minutes minimum. 10 minutes is not too long. Don't cut into the duck breast too soon, because if you do, all the juices will run out and you'll have a dry duck breast. When it comes time to cut the duck breast, that's when I turn it over. It's just a lot easier to cut that way. That's a solid medium. If you want it less cooked, you cook it less on the skin side. I kind of like my duck medium just the way I like my steak, but it's your choice. Scott, I know you like your duck a little bit more on the rare side.
Thanks, Hank. I'm going to sear my duck and goose breasts Initially, this is going to stick to the skillet itself. What that's going to do is give flavor to the stew. I'll be able to deglaze that with some beef stock or game stock once it's nice and brown, but don't worry about it if it gets stuck. Sticking is okay. Sticking is going to create flavor. Once you have a big pot of stew, what's the best way to freeze it? Well, I've got a tip from a friend of mine. Just listen. If you've ever tried to vacuum package liquids like a stew or a soup or diced tomatoes, you know it doesn't work. So what I do is to take the liquid, like these diced tomatoes here, and freeze them. And then you can just run it with a little warm water around the outside and it should pop right out. Now I'm gonna put it into the food saver bag and it won't leak and it won't ruin the chamber and it will last a long time. Now, this particular package is going to last for 2 to 3 years easily. Less than cans, you take it camping, you take it on the boat. And the cool thing about it is you can take tomatoes in the summertime while they still have their flavor, freeze them and put them in these bags so you can have great tasting tomatoes in the off season. Coming up, there's fish with figs, gizzards, and a whole lot more. I'll be here when you get back. Welcome back to The Sporting Chef. I'm Scott Leysath. We got a bunch of people on deck. I've got my duck and goose that's been cubed, seasoned, and it is browning in this Camp Chef Dutch oven. Don't worry if it sticks a little bit. Sticking is going to get flavor. You want it to be browned on the outside. The last thing I want in my stew is something that resembles boiled meat. I like it to be nice and crusty on the outside. That's where the flavor comes from. I'm also going to put some vegetables in here. I have celery, carrots, and I don't peel the carrots. I like to have the skin on the outside. It's a little bit better for you. I've got garlic, jalapeno, red onion, and I'm going to add some canned diced tomato. A little bit long on rosemary in the garden, so I'm going to fill these rosemary sprigs in now. They'll basically disintegrate, and you'll pull the woody part out later, but this is going to add flavor. Okay, this is doing its thing. I got Alan Clemons, who's going to give you a tip on why ducks might not be landing within shotgun range of you.
A lot of times what happens when ducks flare, especially if you're in a blind with openings on the top, the ducks, they're looking down. They're looking to see where they're probably going to land, and we're excited. We're wanting to look at them. So we're sitting there, we're kind of turning our heads, or we're really being stupid and we're looking up, or we're looking out the window of the blind. You know, holy cow. And I tell you what, if you don't have your face covered, painted up, something, it looks like you've got a spotlight on your face. Poof, it just blows up. Paint it, get a face mask, pull your cap down, hide yourself, and you'll probably kill a few more ducks. If you keep your head down and you just glance out of the corner of your eye, you'll see them make that swing. If the surface of that water is smooth, you can sit there and watch them flying on the surface of the water too. You can see that reflection, and you're keeping an eye on them, or somebody else is keeping an eye on them, and then they tell you, get them, bang, you shoot them.
All right, the meat is browned. I'm going to add a little bit of beef broth right over the top of it. What I want this to do is to start getting the meat soft. I can go ahead and throw my vegetables in, but I'm going to wait just a little bit. I like my vegetables to be still a little bit firm to the tooth. I will put a little bit of garlic just to help give it some flavor. And I've got, again, all my vegetables on deck. The last thing I'll probably put in will be these jalapenos and the mushrooms, because I don't want the mushrooms to disintegrate. And then I'm going to have some barley, and the barley is going to soak up all of this liquid. So what I've done with the barley, I've soaked it in water overnight. This is what barley looks like when it's been soaked. It's actually pretty soft right now, so it'll speed up the cooking. It won't soak up all my beef broth. All right, put the lid on. That'll help break down the meat. And for those of you who've been waiting for a fish recipe, I've got my buddy, Chef Christopher Logan, with a fish called cabrilla.
What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cook a little cabrilla, depends on where you're from, tomato. Anyhow, long and short, when you get fillets, basically, as with any kind of salmon, they're usually pin bones. what I do is with a sharp knife, a V-section all the way out, and that should take care of it. I like mixing different kinds of things together. I'm going to do some cabrilla, some sauteed fresh figs. I've got a little bit of a diced yellow squash, zucchini, and red bell pepper, yellow bell pepper. And we're going to finish that with a fresh fig jam and a balsamic vinegar reduction. What I've done is that, because I moved that section, I'm going to cut this into 4 manageable pieces. Hot pan, neutral oil, a little sea salt, and I'm going to mix this up a little bit. I'm going to use togarashi. Togarashi is a Japanese red pepper. The combination that I use has a little bit of a orange zest in it, a little sesame seed, a little toasted seaweed in it. But this is going to be the fire at the end with the sweetness. Should be a good combination. Hot pan, fillets going in. I'm just going to season the other side with just a little bit more sea salt. Togarashi by itself, again, has a little bit of a heat, a little bit of fire. Okay, as I make the first turn, and basically with pan sauteing, so all you want to do is just basically 1 turn, turn it over, 2 turns. To the hot oil, I'm going to add my diced zucchini and yellow squash. And all I want to do is just kind of bring this up to temperature. Because of the small dice, it doesn't really take a whole lot to cook. Red bell pepper, yellow bell pepper. And then I'm going to finish it off with just a pan-seared fig. I've got green figs and I've got brown figs here. And this can be used, again, any kind of combination. It doesn't just have to be with a cabrilla. It could be with grouper. It could be with, I don't know, not necessarily salmon, but you know, it can work with salmon. Any firm flesh fish. Anyhow, we're going to serve this. Okay, that's a green fig right there. There's a brown fig. We've got our diced vegetables. And these are just sauteed in the pan oil. So they're going to have a little heat too. And this is a little balsamic vinegar that I've reduced with some of these green figs. And then a little bit of that jam. Voila! Scott, what do you think?
Next up, more stew, Stacy Harris, Cee Dub, and Buddy. Welcome back to The Sporting Chef. I'm Scott Leysath, and that is my pot of waterfowl stew. It's starting to soften up. The duck and the goose meat is starting to soften up. I'm going to add my vegetables. I've got some garlic. I've got some diced tomatoes. I'm going to hit it with some more of the High Mountain garlic pepper. And I'm also going to put in some barley. But that barley is going to need some liquid, so I've got more of the beef broth here. And then let me give that a stir. And the mushrooms, the jalapenos are going to go in last. I'm going to put a lid on this guy. Now, if you've paid attention, you know that Stacy Harris is a big part of the Sporting Chef show. And she's got a tip on what to do with dry rubs.
I like to make my own dry rubs, and usually they have at least one of these ingredients. I like to use coffee, salt, or ginger in my dry rubs. And the reason I do that is because they're high in acid, and acid will break down the proteins in the meat, and it releases the hydrogen but leaves the oxygen in the meat, and that forms lactic acid. When you have lactic acid, it continues to break down the meat, and you're going to get a tender meat just like you marinated it, and treat that piece of meat just as you would a tenderloin. It's going to be just that tender.
Thanks, Stacy, and don't forget to go to Stacy's website. She's got DVDs, cookbooks, a bunch of very cool stuff. I just added some Worcestershire to the stew. I'm going to throw in some mushrooms. Now the jalapenos. I'm going to give it a stir. Cee Dub, C.W. Welch. He's got probably one of the best resources for what to do with cast iron cooking. And he's also got a great recipe for a wild turkey soup right here.
Scott, a lot of people I talk to don't know what to do with a wild turkey. This is one of the things that I like to do with a wild turkey. I pressure can our turkeys, and so we're going to make a quick turkey noodle soup, and we're going to start with just 1 pint of home canned wild turkey. Just dump that in our Dutch oven here. We've already got about a cup of water, a little over a cup of water going in there. So our turkey's in there, and this is so quick. The only thing we have to worry about is, you know, our noodles getting done. We've got some celery. Nothing goes better with poultry than celery. So we're going to get that in there. And rather than onions, normally I would make this with onions, but I had a bunch of leeks left over in the garden. So we're gonna put some leeks in there. And we're gonna stir that in with our turkey. I wanna add some broth. This is some broth we made that is homemade from boiling a carcass and using the stock. So we try to use everything we can. And we're going to finish this off with some homemade tomato egg noodles. We make our own noodles. These are, if you look at them, they kind of have a reddish cast to them, and that's because they have tomato and herbs in them. And so we're going to get our noodles in there. I'm going to stir. Oh, that last one there wants to come out. Okay, and so we're going to just stir those in, put our lid on. We're going to let this simmer. This is going to be done in about 10 minutes, just the time it takes our noodles to finish. We'll put some homemade or homegrown parsley in there too. Just about forgot that. You know, when our turkey has some salt and some seasoning, our herb noodles have some seasoning in, so really it may look plain, but it's not. And one of the things we like to do is make our own homemade noodles, and the first ones I used in there were tomato noodles. Here's some I made that were made with beets. And you can see that nice pretty color on our noodles. And so we'll make these with, you know, a borscht recipe or something like that. So anyway, that is a quick, easy way to utilize your wild turkey. Once our turkey soup here comes back to the boil, it's going to take about 10 minutes for those noodles to cook. So we'll come back and we'll have our turkey soup all ready to go. Okay, our turkey soup's done. Let's eat up. There's our wild turkey soup right there. Okay, Scott, put this in your playbook when it comes to cooking those wild turkeys.
Thanks, Cee Dub. Great recipe. For those of you who don't know it, I'm also the cooking editor, the columnist for the Ducks Unlimited magazine, so I cook a lot of ducks. My friend Buddy Topher, he cooks ducks too, but he also cooks a lot of parts of animals and types of animals that you might not be as familiar with. I met Buddy on the set of the Dead Meat TV show, where we did armadillos and jackrabbit and raccoon, among other things. He's going to show you what to do with duck gizzards right now. Buddy, do your thing.
Yes, Buddy Topher. We're talking about a part of the duck that you're going to really cook thoroughly, the gizzard. If you're serving it to your cake-eating, tea-sipping friends, and get that silver skin off the outside, take that inner lining out, boil it for, 45 minutes with some seasoning in there, or pressure cook it. Now I went and I made a gravy with some dry roux. I had onions, bell peppers, some serranos. I'm gonna end up seasoning that with just high mountain. I really like both of these a lot. That's fajita seasoning and there's venison rub. So serve it to you. Hoity-toity, friends. Put that on an English muffin like that. Top it with a little bit of green onion tops. Now for your redneck Bubba friends, you want to just do basically the same thing but put a toothpick in there, and you don't cut off all that silver skin or that inside lining of that gizzard. You leave that there because it'll give you a little bit of a crunch. And then when they eating that and they ask what the heck that is, you said it's deer hooves. Ain't nobody ever tasted one, so they won't know the difference. This is Buddy T with the other part of the duck.
Next up, I'll show you how I serve it and how to wash it down. Welcome back to The Sporting Chef. The final touches on my waterfowl stew here is some freshly ground pepper. Everything is nice and soft. The vegetables are still a little firm, but the meat is nice and tender. Let me ladle that up into a bowl. And this will even be better tomorrow. It'll be a little bit thicker. That barley will absorb more of the liquid. Put a little sourdough bread on top. And of course, with that pepper, it works really well with the flavors that are in here with the Michael David Earthquake Zinfandel. One of the things that I don't do on my show is to eat my food, because I've never seen anybody on TV eat their own food and say, man, this isn't very good. It needs a little something. But what I will do is maybe have a sip of wine, which is going to be great with that stew. I want to thank everyone that helped the show be what it is today. Hank Shaw, Alan Clemons, Chris Logan, Cee Dub, Stacy Harris, Buddy Topher. I think that's it. I appreciate you watching. Make sure you go to the sportingchef.com website. Check out the websites for all of our guest chefs and experts. I'm Scott Leysath, the Sporting Chef, and I hope to see you next time.